the meeting, pause recording. That is recording now. So anybody who has to drop out, that's fine. You're good to go there. Okay. So I'm recording the meeting, and hopefully this should look decent enough at the end of it. Okay. So here we were at this position, you know, do continue to put your questions up if you have them as well, so that the questions get recorded as well. It's always useful. So we have this is the environment, phpMyAdmin. Now, I don't know if you've used this with the web dev server class yet, or you're making your databases in MySQL, but I think this is a better option. I'll tell you why. Because Laragon provides you with a one-stop shop. It's like Debenhams or something, you know. It's like the Spar. You walk in and you can buy anything you kind of want, you know. What is it? One of those big fancy shops like Tesco Extra. Some of you may be working in. And they provide you with the Apache server. You can see that it's got this Apache server. It's got a MySQL database, and it's got the PHP compiler. So it has everything you need in it. But putting them all together, if you grab them separately, can be awkward. So that's why I like to use this phpMyAdmin in the same location. So we go here, and we can see there's a list of all of our databases. XAMPP is perfect. Yeah, XAMPP will be the same. If you use XAMPP, you will also have phpMyAdmin. So there's Ryan. How are you? You're very welcome. So Ryan, we're just going over a quick videoing how to connect. So if you're in the lab later, we'll still do that lab. So phpMyAdmin, basically we want to make a new database. So I make a new database, okay? So new. Now don't jump the gun here. You need to really think about be careful what you name it, because it's being referred to here. So I'm saying, well, on the local host in this code, there is a database called my database. So let's call it that, exactly that. Don't start calling it different things. Okay, so let's go back to our window, which is this, and we say, well, let's call it select it, my database. I'm going to create it and call it my database. Not much point calling it something it's not known to it in code. So create that database. That's created. Okay. So my database is created, and then I want to say make a new table. Okay, it's very intuitive. Well, what's the table named? Okay, well, I want to connect to a particular table. I'm saying here select asterisk from car. Well, car is the name of the table, isn't it? And that's why I'm also calling my class car exactly the same. Okay, so then we go into it, and I want to call this car, create car. Okay, but still don't jump the gun yet. How many columns do we have? Now, if you have a class diagram and an EORD diagram with an equivalent table for that class, this will be easy. You just look it up. But we seem to have reg number, make, model, reg date. So what have we got there? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so we have 5 items. Okay, so I'll go back to it, and we say that again. We'll say, well, we have number of columns. We have 5, not 45, 5 columns. And be very careful with databases. You learned this last year. Don't just click go too quickly, because it's very hard to change things that you get wrong. It's much easier if you just get it right the first time. So there we go, create this. And it's telling us now, well, what are those 5 things you just talked about? What are they? All right, what actual things are they? So, you know, you're saying, well, we're calling it registration number. So I'll just copy that. I mean, if you've written the code already in a class, this should be fairly, you know, it'll be there already. You just pull it out. So you have registration number. So I'll say registration number. Leave it as an int. I like that it's an int. Okay, we don't have to give it a default. What we might do is we'll say, well, that's the index. Okay, drop down this and call it, that's the primary key. Okay, do you want to give it a primary key? This is still automated. It'll automate. It just automates a select statement. You can do that in MySQL. Yeah, you can create them using MySQL, whatever you want. It's up to you. Whatever way you want to do it, that's fine. If you want to just write the code directly in MySQL, that's good to go. It's fine too. What I'm doing here today, Rohan, is I'm just showing you how to make sure the 3-tier model all fits together. Okay. So whether that was created, that actually is created in SQL anyway. If all these buttons are doing is clicking on some kind of they're just automating a way for you to write the SQL code for you. Um, so you can do it in MySQL as long as your database is built. It doesn't matter what it ultimately was written in. So let me just get through this very quickly. So car make, car model, reg date. Car make, car model, reg date. Okay. It's here. Okay, so whether you're doing it in HTML or whatever you're doing it in something like PHP it's important that the things are named exactly. It's not what the vehicle you get there in isn't important. It is important that they're named properly. So for example, that should be varchar. We call it a varchar 50. You're unlikely to get a name that long, but varchar 50. Okay, reg date. I'll call this just a varchar. Just what is it? It's called 22 or something. Okay, reg date, and the final one there was car value, sort of a price thing. Okay, so car value. So let's just look at that again. That's car value, and that's int. Okay, so this looks pretty good to go. Now, if you, that question you had, Rohan, just pay attention to this in a second. You'll see how it actually it actually does. This is just generating the SQL code anyway. So if you know how to generate an SQL, you can just go straight to your SQL tab and do it that way. But doing it this way helps it get into the system of the 3-tier model very quickly. So reg number, let me just double check all that, make sure it's really clearly done, just so it's exactly as I want it. So I have okay, so reg number, this is acting weird. What is going on with this? Reg number, car make, car model, reg date, and car value. Okay, so once you're happy with that, again, be cautious making stuff in a database. Don't put any records in until you're really sure. Int, primary key, car make, varchar, value, time save. Now watch this. It's going to generate. It generated it. You didn't see it. It generated the HTML code, sorry, the SQL code to do that. So to answer your question, Rohan, you could have just gone into the SQL tab and done it that way. It wouldn't have mattered. Okay, so there's our values there. Now I'm not going to do a relationship yet. I have a video for that. All I want to do today is just make sure you get that sort of mapping to the code. I want to connect to this, put some records into this, and read them from the code. Okay, that's my objective today. Okay, now there is nothing in that at the moment. Okay, that table is completely empty. Okay, but what we can do is we can still test this if it works. Okay, it's a database connection. Okay, so I can open up another file called it should be called database config. Database config, that one there. Now all of you should basically have this file. That is a very important file for all of you. Okay, it's on Moodle. It's on the top of Moodle, database config. I would suspect the vast majority of you will use this file, even as a blank direct copy. I think Robert said he might be doing something besides MySQL Connect, but it doesn't matter. You ultimately will have to connect your database somehow through your local host using your root with the root password. And the name of the database becomes crucial. So if you generate it with one of these automated tools, that's fine. It's all the same really. But what's important is that the database is named correctly. And if it's connected, it's good. If it's not connected, it'll say failed. So we're going to test that connection right now. So we're going to go to the local host. So where was I? Let's just get out of that. I have too many things open here. It's cluttered. Close that. Close that. Close that. Laragon, we've talked about that. Even Basecamp, I'll leave Basecamp open. Okay, so here we go. Let's run this. So here it is. It was DB. What did I call it? Database config. I called it. It should be there. Oh, there it is. Sorry, database config. That file there. So that's the file that connects to the database. And I'm going to click on it to see if it works. If it says if it fails, it'll tell us it failed. If it's successful, it'll say it's successful. So that says successfully connected to the database. Okay, so that means that this database that we just created here, this database has been successfully placed into the the Laragon database directory. There's Laragon data. We have that database in there somewhere. There it is right there. My database. You see it? In there we have the cars. Okay, can you see all that? So that's what that says when we get that success. It says, well, you've successfully connected your database to Laragon. It sees it. You know, you can connect to it via code. All right. So that's good thing there. It's for success, right? So the next thing we want to do is read from it. I want to read from it, and I'll say, well, okay, it's great that we can connect to it. Can we read from it? Okay, and that's what I'm looking at next. We'll see, well, where is number one? I've labeled these as one. One, well, not just connect to it, but sort of read from it. So we connect to it. If it fails, it tells us that. But now we read from it. So we created a query, select asterisk from car. While there's anything to fetch, just keep fetching it and echoing it. Okay, now there's nothing there, so it's probably not going to really fetch anything, but that's fine. What we want to see here is a blank screen. If we see anything other than a blank screen, we know we have an error. So let's go back, and I've purposely labeled them 1, 2, 3, 4 as they get progressively more complicated as we go along. So there is one DB connection. So let's click on this one. It just says successfully connected database. It doesn't show us any records, and that's good. That's what I expected it to say, because we don't have any records in our actual thing. In our actual database, there is no records. How are we doing for people here? Everyone's still paying attention. Good. Okay, so what we want to do is put some records into it. So if the code that I just looked at is connecting to a database, yep, that seems to work very nicely. And then it reads everything from it. That seems to do it, and it reads that there's nothing there. Well, let's go and put something in there. Okay, now we could put it in from the code. Since we've got some little time constraints, I'm just going to throw a few records in directly. Okay, just for the sake of putting a couple of records in there. Okay, so I'm going to do an insert this way. Yes, to your questions there, I think Regimantis asked the question, could you just write the code, insert into car? Yes, you can. But I'm teaching in a very strange environment over a wire where you can hear me and I can't hear you. So I just want to keep this as simple as possible, okay? So reg number. Now reg number should be unique because we made it the primary key. And it should be an integer. So it says integer right there. So I'm just going to give it a value, 10999. Just that's the value, okay? It's just something simple. Car make, let's call this just something we remember, okay? Whatever, Nissan, no, let's not call it Nissan, something slightly more interesting than Nissan. I don't know, Mazda 6 or something like that, okay? Mazda 6, reg date, and that's a var car, and I don't know, we'll just call that the 12th of, what date are we today? We're the 20th of March. 20th, 20th of March 2020, okay? And we'll give it a price. It's a brand new one. I don't know what a brand new car costs, but we'll just say 17,000, okay? Let's call it a second one. We'll call this one 20999, okay? And call this a Toyota. And let's give this a really expensive car. This is a very expensive car. Let's call it that, okay? Let's call this a whatever, a Tesla Model S. I don't think Tesla Model S is even, whatever, Mercedes or something, like something that's going to cost us 200,000 euros. Mercedes class whatever. Let's say class awesome. You know, I have no idea what kind of Mercedes there is. If anyone wants to hop in a comment, if you have a Mercedes or like cars, tell me the names of these things. Reg date. Let's say it's a year old. We'll call it a year old. So I say 19th of February 2019. Okay, so car value, we'll give this a 200,000 euro car. 2, 3. Okay, so we have one little kind of normal car, and we have a sort of a inexpensive car there. Taiwo's giving me some ideas there. Have you got a car coming up there, Taiwo? Your date? Reg date. I don't understand. I left it as a string. I'm modeling what I see here. Oh, reg date. Yeah, the reg date, the registration date. It's reg date. So when was it registered? There's an O at the end of 2019. When I typed it, oh my goodness. Look at you, well spotted. Let's see, browse at the O of 2019. That doesn't matter. It's fine. It's a string, so it's a string, so it's a string, so it should be okay. It's a string, so it should be okay. 2119. Let's hope we're all still around then to wonder what kind of cars they'll have in that date. 20,000, 100,000 years in the future. Let's just leave it for now. You can actually modify that. I can edit there. Let me see. I'll go on and modify it. And there we go. Good. 2019. That's it. Taiwo, you had a question? It was the date. You were saying the same thing. Okay. That's fine. So we've got two cars there. Let's just leave it. I don't want to sort of faff around with this tool when we're supposed to be coding it. So let's go back to that same code. Okay. Here is the code 1 database connection, which is supposed to open up all of our records. There was no records to open up last time. Let's see if it works this time. And lo and behold, it does. Okay. Registration 10999, make, model, etc. So there's our records. First record, Mazda, make Mazda 6. Doesn't look very pretty because we're just using echoes. That's okay. It's consistently unpretty, which is fine. A consistently unpretty program is better than an unconsistently pretty program. I'll put a break in there maybe just to sort of to see that. I'll put 2 breaks here. So at the end of it, I'll just put a second break again. So we get a bit of a line in between them. So save that. I'll go back to it and reload, and there's a break in between them. Okay. So successfully connect the database, and there's our registration. Okay, so if we keep putting records into that, that's going to be fine. Does anyone want to give me a car? My mind's gone blank about cars, so I'll put 2 more cars, just 1 more car in, 1 really expensive car, 1 cheap car. I'll think of the cheap car. Cheap cars are easy for me. Okay, let's get a nice little, good old reliable, the Nissan Micra. It'll outlast anything. No pandemic can ever knock out a Nissan Micra. Nissan Meg. I'm doing it the wrong way around. 30999. I'll say that. Nissan Audi S7 BMW. Okay, we'll put those in now in a second. Nissan Micra. Nissan Micra reg date. 10th of February 2005. It'll probably outlast the Tesla. Okay, car value 3,000 or something like that. Okay, so what do we got there? BMW i5, great. i8, and let's get these brand new things. 18th of Feb in 2020, and presumably that's it's a fancy 100,000 euro car, something like that. Okay, insert. What do we do? We continue assertion with 4 rows. I'll just put these in there. Okay, this one, the i5 is there. Just put the 2 more in there while we're at it. So what have we got there? So the Audi S7, Mercedes G wagon. Okay, so Mercedes, we already had one in there. So G wagon, and 3rd of August 2019 or something like that. It's just an old enough car, so 170,003, and that last one is the Audi A7, so it's 60999, and the Audi S7, 3rd March 2020, and I guess that's okay. We just put in this on mic at the beginning there, Rohan, so I'll leave that there. That's okay. 100,000. Let's just kind of give it different names. 99. Just so we see some differences here. Okay, I don't know what these actual things cost, but a lot. They cost a lot. Okay, so browse that, and we can see there they are. But like, we don't want to be looking at them through this because you're trying to build this for users. Remember, Okay, so there we go. The S7 comes in there, and all the other cards come in. Let's see if they've appeared in our actual document. So boom, there they all are. Okay, so successfully connected database. There's our card. There's our Mazda. Reg date, Mazda 6. There's the Mercedes class, whatever, class awesome. The Nissan Micra Rohan, we have it in there already. The BMW. So we've got a lot of expensive cars and you've got a lot of cheap cars. A couple of cheap cars and a lot of expensive cars, right? So if you want to search for them, like you're searching for, you're saying a lot of you are making products and you're doing things like um, the user will key in what they want to search for. The user will type in like they only want blue cars, or they only want t-shirts, or they only want to see books by a certain author, things like that. You're going to have to query it. So if you imagine, I mean, look at that. We've just put in a whole lot of records in a matter of minutes. So a stress test would mean you'd be putting in thousands. Do you know what I mean? Often you just take a database and put it in that way. You drag it from somewhere else. But anyway, like I said, we're not necessarily doing stress tests. We're going to do unit test, basis path, UI, and equivalence partition tests. Okay, I'll put that in there actually just as a comment, just to keep you no surprises of what's coming up. Equivalence partition is like a basis path, just a subtle difference. Okay, so where are we doing? We're moving on here, and I want to get the next thing. So what I've done now with these Nix programs is I've essentially modified them to make them sharper versions of this same program. So let's take a look at the code. So we're nearly finished now. We're not much. I know there's a lot of programs to get through. So there is one. There is the database connection. So let's look up. I want to see two. Now we've done the same thing, but I call it modules. This is the same thing. I just use the database connection, but I modularize it. So it's actually that exact program. It's the same program, but I want to take out this database connection stuff, because what is the point in having it there all in the same program using some sort of spaghetti programming style of coding. Okay, let me just take out all these things that are unnecessary. I'll take out that Laragon thing as well. So what I've done is I said, well, include this thing, include that. If that's, where is it? Just sorry, two modules. This one. I say include that database config file. You want to include it so that it's just kind of it's just called on by everybody, because everybody can use it. This is the connection to the database. Database config is what connects to the database. Now you may or may not have done this already in Rob's class, but we're going to reuse this now for the same thing. So if I look here on where was it there, to connect to the modules, look what I did. I just say include database config. So you keep it as a separate file, and I have the same thing again. Build the query, select asterisk from car. Okay, so this program is called to DB connection as modules. So let's look at it. Okay, so let's go back to the index. So here it is. Let's locate it to database connection as modules. Okay, so I want to just run that, and I'm expecting this to do the same thing, just organized a lot better. So it says the same thing again, successfully connected database. Oh, you'll notice it doesn't have the break. See, the break isn't there because I didn't put the break in there yet. The more observant of you will notice that I didn't have the break in there the way it did have it for part one, the little break in between. But let's leave it out because the number of records is increasing quite a lot now. Is Rohan coming in again? Okay, so let's move on very quickly. This is going to be easy now to finish it. So here it is again, part B. How would you do it in modules at a different time? This time we want to say, well, what if there's no data in the table? You got to take that into account. If there's no data in the table, so we have this little if statement around our while loop, just to concern ourselves if there's no data in the table. Now, I probably should have ran that first, so that it would have turned around and said 0 results, rather than just gave you that blank screen that I gave you at the beginning. Remember when we did that? Do you remember at the very beginning I ran it and I just gave a blank screen? And that's not a good thing for your per users. They will not know what's going on. So it's good to put an if statement around that. So you'll see the difference. Notice the difference. You see that while statement, and compared to the first version, there's the version we were just looking at, connect to the modules. So there's the first version. We didn't put an if statement around it. You'd wrap that with an if statement, just in case there is nothing there. That's what I'm essentially doing. So let's clear that out. So really, it's really only the last of these, I mean, all I'm doing is building it up to this heavy, complicated program at the end at number 6. It's the same program each time. Okay, so that's the same thing. So that'll work again. So let's go back and run this now. It's part B to the database to part B, database connection modules. It does the same thing. It's just the code is organized different. The code is scalable. Okay, so we can close that down now. And 3, database connection module. Now, expensive cars. Now it gets interesting. We don't want to just, connect to the database and simply just build a query, select everything from the car. We want to say only where the car is above 20,000. Even the Audi and the Mercedes won't make it here, or one of the Mercedes won't make it here. Okay, only cars above 120,000 euros. Okay, so what if there's no data in the table? Well, that's still taken care of. You see, so like the reason I didn't want to just throw a hugely complicated program at you straight away. I wanted to build it up slowly. So that's why I've kind of organized this into part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each next number is just a slightly more complicated version of the last one. Okay, so let's do that and say, well, look, what if it's over 120,000? Well, let's look back at it again. Okay, well, the last one we loaded was this one, 2B, database connection, and it just seems to show everything. It shows everything. It shows the cheap Mazda, it shows the little Nissan Micra, it shows the BMW. Now let's see only the very expensive cars, okay? So 3, this is the one. There's no if statement. I just said it was with the query. Remember, we didn't do an if statement. I just said where the value is greater than 120,000. Okay, that's where the real kind of thing happens, and that would be tested. You would have to test that. Like that's a classic example of a basis path test, because someone's going to be coming along eventually and want to buy that car. Do you know what I mean? You could have an art gallery and you're selling postcards all day long for €2 each, and now and again someone comes in and buys a print for €40. The odd time they buy an exclusive print for €100, but you may have some artwork on your wall that costs €8,000 and you sell 2 of them a year. Like eventually someone's going to come in and buy it, but you have to have that thing tested. So let's look at our expensive cars here. So click on that. We only have 2. So it's narrowed it down to only 2. And that could have been anything. We might have said cheap cars or really cheap cars. Do you know what I mean? So we look at the code for that. We can see, it's building up. I'm trying to build it up slowly. There's the database config file, which is the connection to the database, which gets put to everything. Here's the query. Like the database config file is just the connection to the database. Keep it open there. That's reused all the time. So here's just get our expensive cars, and it still connects to database config, and it works. Okay, so let's get rid of that for a second. Let's go back, and what's next? So 4. Okay, 4 gets interesting because we're going to insert, not inserting from the local host. We're finished with this now. Close that off. We don't need that anymore. You've made your database. If you have your relations, you don't want to do any insertions from the phpMyAdmin. We're here doing PHP coding, so you insert from the code. Okay, so let's take a look at how you do that. How would you insert from the code? Okay, so where is that? That's number 4 for database connection insert. So again, we need to include the config file. Okay, we need to include db config, and rather this time than have a while loop, we'll call the SQL insert into cars. Now, I don't know if this is the most expensive car in the world, but one of my digital media students informed me that a Bugatti model something or other is the most expensive car in the world at 2.7 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, and we'll change that. Taiwo, you know a lot about cars there, it seems. So I don't know what these things cost, but we want to just put in that car, okay? A Veyron, okay. A Veyron, what's the model name, Taiwo? Oh, a Bugatti Veyron. Thank you so much. And what is that? Am I correct? Is that 2.7 million? Is that right? Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so let's put this value in. Let's give it a number. That's 80999 is the value of its reg. Bugatti Veyron. We want to put a Bugatti in there. So we basically create a query. You're using this MySQL query function, and that's the connection. You put in the connection. I don't know how much of this you did with Rob, but you basically pipe your connection through. I mean, if you look at the shape of all these, they work the same every time. Like there's the database. You make the database by creating a connection string. Okay, this con string. Once you've got that connection string, that is the same connection string that gets reused. So here's that same con string appearing again with the SQL that we just had. Can we use PDO? I don't understand. For the connection, for the database connection, use whatever you need for the database connection. If it's the database connection you're talking about, yeah, you can use any. You can look. You can use anything. You even seen there, like I think Regimandas was saying, how do you do the quick insert? Like this is a software engineering and testing module. So the objective of this module is not that you use a particular tool or not that you use an automated tool for a particular thing. The objective of this is that you have a good foundation. This is a design course. So the way things are designed, the way they're tested, the way they're implemented and then retested and redrafted is what we're looking at. If you can redraft it successfully manually, you could be using like not even Notepad++, just using Notepad and still code this correctly. You could be using a more sophisticated tool to make your class diagrams, or you could be just making your class diagrams in Paint on Microsoft Paint. And if it's this, if the class diagram works, then that's what's important. So try not to confuse the hello Owen, you're welcome to the room there. Try not to confuse the tool and the IDE with the end result. The end result is you get this three-tier model of everything connecting together. So whatever tool, if you want to connect a different way, that's fine. But from what I see, there's a lot of people that are kind of unsure and don't necessarily feel too confident using anything outside the standard tools that we're using. So would that answer your question, Taiwo, or do you want to elaborate on it a little bit more? That's a yes, it answers your question. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, great. All right, so basically then I am going to insert this Bugatti Veyron. And if it gets inserted, it'll tell us inserted correctly, else error. Okay, so take a look at these codes and see it, but let's just run it now and have a look at that. So it's no different to what we were doing. All these files look like they're very complicated. They're really just one more of the same. So it's now for connection insert. Let's run it. It says new record successfully created. Let's go back to our expensive cars. Let's see, did the Bugatti Veyron end up there? And oh, lo and behold, there it is. Okay, Bugatti Veyron, reg date, etc. So we were able to not only insert from PHP code into the database, which is connecting and communicating with it, we were able to read from the database as well, the same thing you just inserted. So that would be no different than a user entering in a search for some expensive cars, showing what expensive cars they can buy, inserting the expensive car they want to buy. Okay, and that's a three-tier model. I know it may not look like it because it's got a very base level interface here, but that's really what this thing is about, making those classes, the ERD, turn the ERD into a database and getting the whole thing to work together. Now, obviously, this is a simple one table database, but we've got to begin somewhere. I don't want to throw at you. It's complicated enough doing this online with one table without having to do it with 10 tables all related and confuse you that much. So let's put another one in there. Let's put another car in there. Let me just think of some other car. Not a I'll think of the car this time. I guess some cheaper car. 90999 and something sort of basic. Um, what kind of basic cars are Ford? Ford, nothing more basic than a Ford, is there? Ford Mondeo, there you go. Casino Royale. James Bond drove a Ford Mondeo in Casino Royale, so they can't be all that basic. Daniel Craig. Remember that movie? What is that? 25,000 euro for a decent Ford Mondeo or something? I don't know, but let's pretend it is. Okay, so let's enter that and rerun that again. So that's saved. Let's rerun it and rerun this for insert to it. Okay, so click insert, new record successfully created. It's not one of our expensive cars, so it won't appear there. It's one of our cheap cars. Let's just modify that. I don't think I have a cheap car one created here, do I? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just look at all of them. I haven't got time to be making new ones, but let's just rerun the standard one of all of them, and there it is. There's our Ford Mondeo. Okay, there's our Casino Royale, Daniel Craig sports Ford Mondeo. Ford must have made a fortune, must have paid a fortune for that advertisement in that movie. Okay, that's been added. So we've added that basically to it. So what if you want to delete something? That's the next thing. We want to delete a record. Well, deleting is no different than anything else you've learned in HTML. So we'll leave that one there. So we've deleted. So now we do 5 connection delete. Same thing again. We have this sort of HTML structure. We include the config file rather than make an SQL that does a select or an SQL that does a what do you call it, a search or an insert. We use one that does an delete. So let's delete all the Mazdas. Now we don't have a lot of Mazdas in there. Maybe I'll just put a second Mazda in there just to sort of reiterate that insert again. So I'll just insert, let me just put one in here. I'll put one in 19, I don't know, a Mazda, what Mazdas are called? 3, you get a Mazda 3 or something like that, is that right? So run all our cars. I hope you're following. Yeah, is that right? Thank you, Dylan. Mazda 3. Okay, so run all of our cars. There we go. They're all there. So insert. It successfully ran. So show me them again. There it is. So we have a Mazda 3 and we have a Mazda 6. So the first one is a Mazda and the final one is a Mazda. And now we're going to delete everything that's called Mazda. Okay. So let's delete those 2 things right now. Go back to it. I've already coded it. I've said switches. That's different. That's only for testing. Let's leave that alone for a second. That's a slight little bit different. Connection delete. We're going to delete everything that's called a Mazda. I don't have anything against Mazdas. They look like fantastic cars, but we have to delete something. Okay. So let's go. Let's run it to see that they're there. There's the expensive ones. That's good. There's the ordinary cars. Mazdas are still there. Now, number 5, connection delete. You're going to kill all those Mazda records. Delete records deleted successfully. Okay. So if I click this again, it'll say, oh, well, it says record deleted successfully. I should have coded that to say, well, there are no Mazdas, so I have nothing to delete. Let's look at them again then. So connection of the standard cars. Okay. And whoa, lo and behold, where did our Mazdas go to? They got deleted. All right. So you know that may look like a very simple set of programs, but actually it's fairly straightforward. Once you can do that, insert from the code, search from the code, delete from the code, you can do anything you need to do because you can therefore insert new customer bookings, modify customer bookings, delete customer bookings. And the hard part from what I see, having taught this over the last 2 years, is that the 3 years, this is the third time I've taught it. Never online like this and never from my attic. But it's really the hardest part from what I can see is this connection and this concept of changing data and getting those. Like the biggest error I get through email is I can't connect to my database. And what that really translates to is I can't get this database config file working. Okay, so start with that. Get your database config file working. If you have your ERD and your class diagram done, like just get it all coded. Start building your database. Start building your classes all at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like the days of kind of doing tippy toes are kind of gone. If you have your class diagram done, get those classes built. Get the database equivalency built with them. It's not difficult to do the database once you've got the classes, as you saw, even through Laragon. Like there's really no excuses. We can use this Laragon tool to create that, and it's a fairly standard way of just making your database. Like there's our database, my database. We don't have to worry too much. Car table. We have to worry an awful lot about writing the SQL code for it, because the whole point of Laragon is that it's a one-stop shop with all these 3 tiers available: the Apache server, the database MySQL, and of course it can use PHP code. A server is that's what you need. PHP as a server language is the client. Client, server, database. You've probably heard that before. Those are the 3 tiers: client, server, database. Okay, that is what we mean by a 3-tier model. Okay, client, server, database. So client being the PHP language, server, Apache server, database, MySQL database. All right. Okay, so let's go back into the code that we've been using. And we've one more thing. What have I got here? Am I on number 5? I just did 5, delete. And let's do this little game I did here, connection game. And I only really wrote this because it could be something to test, And I'm not sure if it'll even work because I don't think I have it. Okay, record inserted successfully. Great. Okay, so what game does is this. So let's close those down. 5 is delete. We've done that. And 6 is some kind of connection game. Oh yeah, I make this kind of randomizer thing. I basically randomized some year, and I just put in some random car as if the user thought of it, So you've got, I just include database. I randomize a year between 1 and 4. I should have been really randomizing a season between 1 and 4, but that's all right. It's season I should be referring to there, not year. I don't want to change the code now because I want to finish up now. String make is nothing. I basically give it a random car. Okay, it's like a quick pick or something in a lottery ticket. Same idea. Quick pick for cars. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Give me a car. You pick it for me. That's fine. A car that costs X euros, you can pick it. Okay. So then I just insert the value. So boom, string 1990. What do they call that for? It's called a little bit later than 1990, 2020. 35,000. So we just basically insert the thing again. So all I'm really doing here is I'm not doing this to this program is a ridiculous code. It's more you're going to have some type of if statements, switch statements on top of your code, because there's no way that you're just going to insert the same type of record all the time. It's going to be the user choosing it, or a game that randomly chooses things. Do you understand what I'm getting at? A game that randomly chooses things. So let's just go back to our program again, and we'll see this. So what records have we got there now? So there's the connection, and there it is, the winter snow. That's the car I just added. Okay, I don't know why I'm calling it the winter snow. It's based on Nissan Leaf, so Nissan Leaf. I thought winter snow might sound kind of car-like, but not really, does it? It doesn't really sound like a car. The next one, then we're just going to randomize that again and see what other random car gets set. So the summer beet, the autumn leaf. Okay, the spring tide. Let's go back and do it again. So we're on number 6 on the game, where you do your quick pick. Okay, this is a quick pick for cars. Okay, only a lunatic would buy their car that way, but you might buy something else that way. Give me what you have. Give me the food of the day. I don't really care what I eat. Give me the meal of the day. Quick pick. Okay, and this is what this is. record inserted successfully. Let's see what got inserted this time. And that the summer beat got inserted that time. You see the idea? Let's do another quick pick. Insert another car. Oh, it didn't work. Why? Because duplicate entry for summer beat. See that? Okay. So I think that's about the level we want to get to today. You'll need to think about that there is no duplicate entries. It's easy to come by just say just an if statement as long as it's not there already. Don't put it in twice because it's a primary key. Or rather than even have it as a primary key, just where is it the automatically generate the primary key. You can do that. You can just set that up in PHP-MyAdmin. Okay, so to summarize on that lecture we did today, I want to finish up now. Is we covered basically classes need to be coded. EORD need to be created and coded, not just created, coded. You can use PHP-MyAdmin. By all means, use something different if you like something different, because the course is not a course in what tool you use. It's a course in how well you design things. So the design doc should obviously contain your classes, but not just your classes alone. Go back to that lab 5 and show a justification. Remember, your stakeholders are involved. They want to see, where did that class diagram come from? Did you really use your use case spec? Or was the use case spec just some exercise just to sort of get the 25%, Did you really use the use case spec to get that? So lab 5 is your first port of call to get that. Lab 5 is definitely what you got to look at there, okay? Lab 5 has a little test program in it, so the unit test, I know I don't call it a unit test, but that's what it is. That's a unit test at the end of lab 5, okay? Test everything. Submission, we're going to put the submissions then obviously on the 6th of April. It gives you slightly over 2 weeks, so the pressure's off. You won't get 2 full weeks working at it. I'm aware of that. You'll just get time as you need to do it to work on it, okay? So the testing we'll cover in the next lecture. So hopefully by now, and thanks so much for everyone who made those suggestions. For there's Regimantis with the quick add on Laragon, and Taiwo and Talu for your contributions there about dates and the types of cars, etc. Installing WinZip, look for here. Installing PHP install. Just check it out, okay? It's not difficult when you know, but if you don't know, you just end up getting stuck. There's a video on YouTube of me going through the same thing again for relationships. Some of your tables will be related. If you have aggregations, your tables will also be related. Okay, and that's pretty much it for today. I hope you followed all of that, especially the code. The code is now on Moodle. It's at the very top, sample PHP samples. So I'm going to sign out of this class, and I'll meet my so-called 11 o'clock group, which is now 11:45. The Friday group, who I have all of your names written here anyway.